we have our first look at the changes that are being made to the new spear weapons coming with the next Guild Wars 2 expansion, Janthir Wilds. So ArenaNet have listened to our feedback from the beta test and they've given us this blog post that does a quick surface level look at some of the main changes. They do mention that this is just outlining what they feel are the most impactful changes at a broad level, so we're not really quite getting the full picture just yet. We have to wait a little bit longer for the full list of changes that'll be detailed in the actual expansion release notes. So this is just a broad overview, but we'll take what we can get. So let's go and have a quick look at my beloved, my main Revenant. There's some really good changes here, and there's also a couple of changes that I really wanted to see that are absent, which is a little disappointing. Maybe there's a small chance that maybe these are some of the changes that were omitted. Maybe we'll see them in the expansion release notes, but it doesn't really look good. But overall, I definitely think these are good changes. So, Revenant Spear aim to be a heavy weapon that build up strength, accumulating in powerful damage. Yep, as we know, very heavy is the main point there. But this is one of the main changes that they've made. However, in the beta we saw that this weight was unwieldy and its punches lacked impact. So this was one of the main things that I criticize, and one of the most common things that I saw other people not liking. So cast times are being decreased across many skills. That's probably the biggest one. That's fantastic. The cast times were way too slow and long. It felt very slow and cumbersome to use. So this is fantastic. And the way that they say across many skills is good. That sounds like it might be almost all of the skills, like probably most of the skills, which is good because, I think that was needed for almost all of the skills. Mostly the auto attack, I think, but yeah, pretty much all of them, to be frank. So that's fantastic, and we are increasing the condition variety of the skills to help its damage stick. So this is a nice to have in PvE. It's fine. Mostly, this is a really good change for competitive game modes, I think. So, if you're only slapping on one single condition to your enemies in like PvP or World v World or something, and they get any kind of condition cleanse, that's all of your damage just gone instantly. If you've got a wide variety of conditions, now they have to cleanse all of these separate conditions. So it helps its damage stick. It's not just going to be instantly countered by a single little condition cleanse. So that's fantastic. But yeah, in PvE, it's just kind of like, yeah, all right, that's fine. It's I don't really care too much about that one. Crushing Abyss's maximum stacks has been reduced from 5 to 3. So another one of my main things that I wanted to see was the skill 5's energy cost to be reduced. It costs 10 energy every time you use it, which doesn't sound like heaps, but when you realize that it's one of the main parts of the weapon, and it's literally designed to be pretty much spammed. Like you use this skill to build up stacks. That you use skill 5 to build up stacks of this Crushing Abyss, and then you use your other skills to lower the cooldown of skill 5 so that you can use it even more often. And then put on top of that, using upkeep skills on like Herald or Renegade or something like that. And it was very energy starved. So what I said is I wanted to see the energy cost of this reduced. It looks like that has not happened. However, this kind of has a similar effect. The fact that the maximum stacks is 5 instead of 3 means you only need to use skill 5 3 times instead of 5 times in order to get to the maximum stacks, which is basically just how you power up the weapon to its maximum to get the most damage out of it, as well as I think there's like a mechanic where if you swap weapons at maximum stacks, you get an extra bonus or something like that. So this sort of makes up, I guess, for the lack of them reducing the cooldown. I don't know, I feel like maybe I might still want to see a cooldown reduction, but we'll have to wait and see, I guess, how it feels. Maybe this does the same job. Even without the cooldown things, though, this does feel great because it's a faster build-up in its damage. So that's always something that I'm all for. If it's building up damage faster, that's fantastic, obviously. Yeah, making the weapon reach its maximum potential a lot faster. So that sounds like it's going to feel pretty good. Another change, Abyssal Blot will now pull immediately, helping the weapon set itself up better. This sounds fantastic for me. This is not something that I thought really was a required change. This is not something that I asked for, but this sounds really good. Basically, Abyssal Blot, I think this was skill 4, where you placed an AoE on the ground and it would start damaging, but there would be a delay, and then after that delay, it would pull into the center of that AoE. So it felt a little bit strange. You couldn't use it reactively, or you couldn't use it immediately. It was something you had to sort of plan ahead. It didn't really feel like a pull. You know what I mean? It was like, oh, you place it and it does some damage, and or a bit later it might pull something towards it. So the fact that this is an immediate pull, I think is going to feel so much nicer. I really like pulls in PvE, like open world killing things. Pulls feel really good. One of my favorite things to do on Necro is use their utility skill, Spectral Grasp, which is just one of the most satisfying skills in the whole game. It's a 1200 range, a really long range pull that pulls like a bunch of enemies. I think it's like up to like 5 enemies. It's got a pretty high amount of little hands that pull all the enemies into this one spot, and then they all just get like churned and they just all completely die, and there's all of these damage numbers everywhere. It's very fun. I really enjoyed pulling enemies together and then like just absolutely annihilating them all. So I think this is going to feel pretty good because of that. The result of these changes is a more fluid weapon with more tools to secure its damage. So it sounds good. Like these, again, overall, this sounds like some really good changes. I think these are going to make the weapon feel a lot better to use. However, the big missing one, the one that is so disappointing, is they mentioned nothing about range, and this was literally one of my biggest gripes with the weapon. It's a very awkward, very strange 600 range, which is like, it's almost like a long range melee. It's like super short range for a ranged weapon. And for comparison, the short bow, which is already like, maybe you wouldn't call it medium range, but it's definitely not like long range. Long range is like 1200. Short bow is 900. So this being 600 it feels really short. I remember when I was using it during the beta that like I just couldn't reliably consider it a ranged weapon. Like whenever I would try and tag something that was a little bit far away, it was like, oh, it's out of range, it's out of range. So I ended up just kind of using it as a melee weapon. So I was really hoping that they would up it to 900, and it sounded like they were going to. They mentioned in the initial live stream that they were thinking about upping it to 900 range, but there's no mention of that here. So that is definitely the biggest disappointment for me. And honestly, it's kind of like making me think like, well, I may as well just use short bow because they're both two-handed condition weapons, but short bow is just longer range, and yeah, it's a little bit disappointing. I would only be using the spear as a melee weapon, I think, if it's still 600 range. Bit disappointing, but I don't know. Maybe there's a very tiny little chance that that's something that they omitted that is going to be changed on its release. Who knows? I hope it is. That would be such a good change, I think. Not a lot of information on the spear, so we'll have to wait for the expansion release notes for the full breakdown of exactly everything that has been changed. Also, just another little announcement here. I'm already a few days into what I'm calling Gaming Week over on Twitch, where I'm streaming heaps every day for a week straight. I'm going hard, grinding as much gold as I possibly can for a video that will end up here on YouTube a little bit later. So at the time that this video goes up, I'll still have 4 days left of streaming every day. So come jump in and say hello, and jump in my Discord as well to get notified of stuff like this in advance. Links for those will be in the description. All right, that's it from me for now. do all that YouTube stuff, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.